On Saturday evening, the country heard the news of the passing of Sam Nzima, who became a household name after he captured the Hector Pieterson picture. Born in a small village in Bushbuckridge, Mpumalanga, Nzima fled to Johannesburg after 9 months of working on the farm. His interest in photography developed at a very young age, inspired by one of his teachers who had a camera. It is said that he was still in possession of his own camera that he used when he took the famous picture with. Talking to us about the life and times of Sam Nzima, we've got in studio with us Joe Thloloe, who of course is the Executive Director of the Press Council. Joe, it's so lovely to have you here in studio, and welcome to Morning Live.
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a great
Can I just correct something?
Please.
I've just retired as Executive Director of the Press Council.
Thank you for correcting us. Thank you very, very much for that. Joe, let's talk about the life of Sam. I mean, obviously hearing the passing must have been quite devastating for you.
Yeah, it's quite devastating. In fact, I'm losing all my old friends now. It's quite sad.
Yeah, indeed. Was he suffering? I mean, was it a particularly bad time for him?
The family say he was just fell ill on Thursday, and they took him to hospital, and that
was where it was. He led a life that many of us look at from afar and sort of admire, but it's not easy. Being a photographer, being on the ground, witnessing events in front of you and still having to try and capture them without changing the course of history is never easy. It's a difficult life. But let's go back to your friendship with him. When in your career did you actually meet Sam?
At the time that Sam took this photograph, he was working for the World newspaper.
Yes.
While I was working for Drum magazine. But we got connected because at the time I was president of the Union of Black Journalists, so he was a member of the union. A very interesting thing is that after he took the photograph, the union decided to publish a document which we called the UBJ Bulletin.
Yeah.
And where we asked all the people who were in Soweto on that day, journalists, to give us first-person accounts of what they had seen and done. And Sam gave us a series from the time that Hector was shot up to the time that he was carried into the Sam's car. Sam was driving the official car from the World.
Yeah.
Up to the time they put him into the car, Sam just did that series. And we did it as on the front page of that bulletin.
Wow.
And then with the iconic picture right in the middle of it. It was a fantastic document we produced.
Yeah.
It was banned the day we published it. And the police went round to every member of the union trying to confiscate any copies that might exist of that document, of that bulletin. I believe only one copy still exists, and it's Joby Mayet has got that copy.
Wow. How interesting is that? That's amazing. I mean, it was actually confused at the time for another photographer's work. Is that correct?
No, I don't think it was, because it was very clearly Sam Nzima's work.
Yeah. Not even later on. I mean, later on in life. I mean, was it never a confusion?
No, there was never any confusion.
Okay. Copyright. I mean, that was always a big one. That was a big problem. It still is a big problem with a lot of photographers today. I mean, we see the fight and the struggle continuing, but copyright over this particular photograph.
In fact, the negatives of the pictures were kept at the World, and then later the Sowetan, under lock and key. Nobody could get the negatives of that picture.
Yeah.
But in the end, he tried to wrestle back the copyright from the Argus company, and I don't think he ever succeeded. His picture was being used around the world, but he didn't get a cent out of it.
Amazing. I mean, when you talk about the fact that photograph has been used around the world, you know, I did just a very quick search this morning on Sam Nzima just to get the reaction from people. I was blown away by the amount of publications, foreign publications, languages and websites from all over the world. I mean, and I think this is just testimony to the legacy that Sam left behind, because this photograph told the story of what was happening here during the apartheid years of South Africa that many people didn't even know about. So he made his mark in the world in a very big way with this photograph.
It definitely did. As I say, it captured apartheid in all its ugliness.
Yeah, yeah. It really did. I mean, if we look at the life of Sam, because, you know, even at the time, the police harassments continued, and in fact, it got even worse for him. That he was sent back to his place of origin. I mean, he had offers from the biggest newspapers at the time, and yet he had to sort of take a back stand on this.
It's ironic that I mean, he told us afterwards that he had been harassed by the security police. But the irony is that so many journalists at that time, after June 16, were locked up. I was in jail with Peter Makobane, with Moffat Zungu, with a few of the reporters who had covered June 16. And he wasn't amongst any of us. And that's why it came as a surprise when he said that, in fact, he was harassed out of Johannesburg by the security police.
Yeah.
That's when he moved into business in Mpumalanga.
Yeah. So it's amazing. I mean, just to think of the publication of these photographs and the harassment that he faced while he was doing this, of his famous pictures. What did he do later on in life? Running a photography school, if I'm not mistaken?
No, he was running a business, I think a liquor store in Mpumalanga. But it is only recently that he was talking of starting an academy for photographers. The last time I met him, in fact, he asked me if I would come and talk to his students when he actually got the project going.
Yeah.
And that was the last conversation I had.
That was the last conversation. But I think what was really important was at least he was recognized for his major contribution here when our former president, Jacob Zuma, actually conferred him with the Order of Ikhamanga in 2011, the bronze, 27th of April. And I mean, that is, I think it's a very big honor.
Yeah, in fact it is. In fact, I was also delighted that President Ramaphosa actually paid tribute to him in the last day or two.
Yeah, amazing. Well, we're here celebrating his life and the immense contribution that he made during those apartheid years with a photograph that, as we keep saying, echoed the time that South Africa was going through, and many not knowing what was going on. But I think this photograph, in its own way, changing the course of history and still living till this day, and it will never disappear. Joe Thloloe is, of course, the executive director, was the executive director of the Press Council. He was telling us a bit earlier that he's no longer in that position. But thank you, Joe. Thank you very, very much for coming in.
That's it.
Let's take a break, and we'll continue to have more interviews for you. We, in fact, are going to focus on the Pan-African Parliament and some of the things that have come out of there over this last week. Do stay tuned.